All right, everybody, check, radio check. Before we get started, if somebody wouldn't mind typing into chat that you can hear me and see me, that we don't have any technical difficulties that I don't know about. Those that are out there in, let's see. Hey, man, how are you, Tim? I'm back. So I just see your chat there, and Bruce, good, thank you. Yeah, Tim, you and I need to catch up. I just been running and gunning, man. So hopefully all is well. So I want to thank everybody for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. And I started thinking about this topic because some people have shared with me over time, just as they transition into retirement, what they're doing, and this is by no means designed to. It's really just to have meaningful conversations so that retirement for each of us means something different. And so I felt like, let me share a little bit of some experiences that I've been blessed to help people experience. And again, it's this is a journey, and I want to be a guide. So if we can help you, we'd like to. But I equate this to in this industry of financial planning and finances, and, as with technology integration of, I was on a call this morning and somebody used language that I caused them, I said, stop there, because I would ask you to adjust that language, because, I teach and train advisors, and he goes, yeah, I specialize in helping people with qualified plans. And I go, the average person does not know what a qualified plan is. So when you speak in those terms, you may end up confusing somebody. And so we regardless of your industry, we all have nomenclature verbiage that's unique to our industry. So if you're a baker and you bake for a living, sometimes we tend to think that everybody knows how to bake. Or if we're a plumber, right? I'm on, my background's mechanical engineering, so I was a plumber in the Navy, and I understand a lot of it. But sometimes, when somebody is explaining a problem, that maybe might be design related, plumbing related, heating related, you can get extremely technical and speak in language that might just go over most people's heads. And then, the same thing, but whether it be a baker, a plumber, or a mechanic, car mechanic. How many times have you gone to a mechanic and they go, "Yeah, the catalytic converter, you're going to have to do that," or your rotors, your camber, and your on your tires, that we need to put it on the calc or the computer to make sure that your tire wear is correct. So, the point that I wanted to make here is that retirement is a journey, and for each of us, it's different. And sometimes we have to be careful that we think that we know everything about it, but there's a lot of variables that go into it, so that we can ultimately, when we say success in retirement, it means something different to everybody. Right? There's not this, like, there's might be 10 people on this call and some people in the, watching from, LinkedIn, that for each of us, it's something different. I used to use this, sort of phrase, which is, people will spend more time planning a 2-week vacation than they will reviewing and thinking about their retirement. And it's because it's so far into the distance that we're not quite certain what to even plan for. So what I wanted to do was just share with you some thoughts. And then again, if you're looking for guidance, that's what we do at Professional Planning Services. So, one of the factors that I think is really important, and I just had a call with a longtime client of mine today, and they're blessed, and looking to retire at around, I think they, she retired at 56, and and he's still working by choice, but he's 58 right now. And so they're both young in relative terms. And as we were talking, they're not thinking about age 65 yet, right? Because they haven't experienced it. So health insurance, all of this stuff is important. And then, we go to, location. Where do we want to retire to? Do we want to stay in New Jersey? Pros and cons to doing so. As we look at that, what are your needs if you do decide to stay here? I have clients that start out here, realize it's expensive, maybe start to look elsewhere, and then change. So I point all this stuff out because I know it almost seems obvious, but it's not for people, especially when it's your first time going through this. But needs versus wants, right? So I always, again, I have a lot of sort of phrases that I've coined, which is, it costs to sleep indoors. But not necessarily just because you had a house and you've raised a family there, right? Doesn't mean that that's where we have to necessarily stay right now or into the future. But it still has to be factored into our planning, because if we're going to stay in this house, cost of maintenance, taxes, all the things that go along with home ownership. But I have quite a few clients that have sold their primary residence and started to rent because it's just easier. It's a quality of life, and there is no right or wrong answer. But then once you do figure out, okay, this is what I need, absolutely food on the table, roof overhead, to pay the taxes, for absolute needs. But then the wants, which are the vacations, the lifestyle, the things that actually create a smile on our face and cause us enjoyment, there's a cost to those things. And to put a reasonable cost to these elements, I think is prudent, and that's what we specialize in. Family. Everybody's family is different, right? So if you have children, are they close? Did they move? Did your children have children? So now you have grandchildren. And or maybe you're now responsible, potentially responsible, in at least helping out. I got a client right now who's got, I was talking today with Keith. I believe I've known him for a long time. I think has 5 children. He's been married a couple times, and he was, we were talking about, because he was like, "Oh my God, this one child is a handful." Just and so as the helping the child out, you in retirement maybe say, "Hey, I love it," and the benefit of being a grandparent is we can give the child back at some point in time. We can go, "He's yours, she's yours," and you can unplug and go back into your lifestyle. But sometimes, we're helping our children out because of the cost of childcare, right? We're trying to help our children get ahead. And so it really does serve two purposes, which is not only can I enjoy my help my children out, but I can actually enjoy my grandchildren. So again, family is relevant and it's very important. Activities, what do you enjoy doing? When I'm doing retirement planning workshops, and I'll say, what day of the week do we spend the most money? And typically that's Saturday, right? Because it's our day off, right? We're going out to dinner, we're doing things. In retirement, every day is Saturday. So we have to take that into consideration. And then, the question then becomes is, how much golf can you play? How many vacations can you take and afford? So all of these things, maybe you want to take up pickleball, maybe you want to join the gym. All these things are things that you wanted to do because you said, I've worked hard, I've earned it, I've saved it, I want to get there. And we encourage you to do so. But again, understanding the impact of why we have our health, and if you've been to any of my workshops before, my educational venues, I have what I call the go-go years, the slow-go years, and then the no-go years. And these are all things that we want to make sure that while we're young, we first get done, that we have our ability to do things. But as we get older, we have to slow down a little bit. Then the social environments, right? So, sometimes, right, we may retire, and as I mentioned, folks at different ages retire at different times. And maybe, we like to get together with our friends. Maybe we would belong to a church or a club, and we meet regularly. But because now we're retired, we have a little bit more time on on our hands. So maybe, maybe we're a little bit more involved. Maybe we make more friends, and maybe one of the, let's say you're a couple, right? And you're able to, maybe one person enjoys that activity or that social environment or that gathering, but the other person doesn't. So, I'm getting into the weeds here a little bit, because the emphasis that I'm trying to make is that it really, everybody's different. Travel, I just mentioned, I love to travel. I've been blessed to be able to explore a lot of the planet. I still got a lot of places on my bucket list, but there's a cost to do so. You don't have to go broke. You don't have to necessarily stay in a five-star resort and blow all your money on one event. But even if it's something like this picture here, that you're able to go outside and explore and smell the flowers and see the scenery. There's a lot of beautiful places on this planet. Sometimes I get to see it. I like watching the Nature Channel. So even though I can't get there, I really, it's high on my list. I want to go to China, but not anytime soon because of the political unrest. But there are places on this planet that I think have seem beautiful. I also want to go to Antarctica just because, right? But I don't know that I'll ever get there. So we also don't want to, one of the things, have regrets. Like, I should have done something. And so I encourage people to take that vacation, especially when we're young and we first retire. Go to those places that are high on your bucket list, because I really do think, it's about quality of life. And then your overall finances, right? It costs to sleep indoors. These things, we have to put a numeric value to this stuff, and that's again what are where our expertise. And then lastly, what could go wrong, right? And this is why we have to have those discussions and think about. And you'll see by my last example of one of the families that I helped, something that goes wrong. And so that's why I just learned in my career to help encourage people to take that vacation, to spend that time with family, hug the ones you're with, because again, everything's fine until it's not. So let's talk about M&D. I'm going to call them Marla and David, but that is not their names. This is a picture they took out their window going to a place in the Caribbean. And I'm just very proud to that they not only have me as their financial advisor, but I think we call each other friends. And but it started, with me. I was doing a college workshop at a library that they had come, and they were scared to death because of the rising cost of college, paying for three college tuitions in this environment at roughly, at the time, 40, $50,000 a year was a price tag. So you do 50 times two, I'm sorry, times four is 200,000, times three kids, it's a $600,000 math problem. I was able to help them to navigate. I met their children. I call them students. Their students are now my clients. And so it really has been a very, very, I've been blessed to be able to help the family. So now when they share with me what they're doing, it brings a smile to my face. I do manage their assets. So over time, he has since we've worked together, we've been able to constantly monitor. And he was another one that was able to retire at 57 and say, I'm done. Worked really, really hard. They were savers, and we made good decisions along the way. And it gives me great pleasure to be able to say, you're good. You're okay. There's really, bar anything significant, you really don't have anything to worry about. And then, like I said, they retired at 57 using us as a guide. So, that was one of my success stories. And again, I want to emphasize This is not about me trying to pat myself on the back. This is a team approach. This is where, I'm only a guide. So if somebody says I want to go and go explore that, then we will. But we're going to understand everything that goes along with those decisions. So client number two, J and G, we're going to call them Jerry and Jerry, but that is not their name. All right. But they've been over 10 years, and we met at an educational event, and they elected to come in for an evaluation. So I can tell you they were nervous, right? Working hard, but they weren't certain that they could retire. And it took me many meetings and really exploratory accounting to basically get into their specific finances. And I think that's what differentiates us at Professional Planning Services is we are comprehensive financial advisors. We are going to get into the weeds. I am going to ask you for things that are typically not easy to find, typically expenses that we typically will just brush off and go, you know what, I'll worry about it later. Why does he need that? I do need it because, again, I have the ability to build a watch. But what I'm trying to do is tell time, but your time, and collecting this data, helping you to understand what you have, where you're at. So the analogy I always like to do when I'm doing these modelings is if we were to go to a mall and the first place we go to is the directory to make sure that the store that I'm going to, that place that I want to get to, are we on track? Is that the most efficient way to get there? And it's this approach that has allowed me to serve many, many clients in the community. I manage their assets, and I can tell you, and again, my personality is I tend to be very conservative with investments. I don't like to swing for the fences. If somebody wants to, I can certainly help, but it comes with a cautionary tag. But I also, when clients are more conservative or more worried, and in this case, she was absolutely panicked, right? That she was like, we can't retire. We don't have enough money. I can tell you, over the last 2 years, I probably had 6 to 8 meetings with them going through the numbers, saying, you're okay. You can do this. And they have both hung up their cleats. They retired. He was 70 and she was 67. And this is the video that he sent me last week. They're out in Utah. And this is, you're into skiing, but this is just something that they enjoy doing and they have their health and the ability to do so. So it gives me great pleasure to be able to share that with you guys. Now we're going to talk about what could go wrong. I've mentioned on my calls before, and this is why, having experienced it in my family personally. Again, Marcus, over 12 years ago, but he retired. Actually, that was Marcus. It's not 12 years ago, so that's a typo. I met Marcus 5 years ago. So just put that mental note there. But Marcus was referred by another financial advisor in another state who manages his brother's assets. Upon meeting him, we did a deep dive. Like I said, just like I always do, I go through, I extract the data, and everything was good. He's single, does not have a significant other. He had had his finances with another advisor. I was able to go in and do a pretty detailed analysis, and he was in, I'd say above average risk. And I think it was pretty expensive for some of the strategies that he was in. But I'm not here to again, pat myself on the back or to throw anybody under the bus. But he did move everything over to me. And part of that process, right? He was done working. He was a mechanic. He was, had been many, many years working under the hood of cars. Rebuilding these things, taking them apart, diagnosing them. And he also, what's interesting is he's had an affinity towards building computers as well. So he's a pretty intellectual guy. And part of my plan, because he had so much money, because he was frugal, he doesn't spend money on anything. you know what? I was able to strategically roll money that he had saved in his 401k. And again, he has many money elsewhere. He's not in jeopardy of running out of money should nothing happen. But I said, you know what? This money over here, you really don't need. Let's make sure that we have long-term care. And one of the things you're going to hear us talk about, I've talked about in the past, it's called asset-based long-term care. So we were able to roll the money from a qualified plan. Qualified, as I mentioned earlier, is money that's in an IRA, 401k, 403b, something where the taxes hadn't been paid yet. The taxes are eventually due on these types of plans, but by being strategic, we're actually able to reduce the tax burden. We move the money from the 401k into an asset-based long-term care. Well, that was 3 years ago at 65. He is now 68, and he's got early stages of dementia, and it's become obvious to me because when I call him or ask him for things or I need detailed stuff, not only myself but his best friend went and had him go to a neurologist, and that's where the diagnosis was confirmed. So, everything's fine until it's not. And I'm here to help. And I'm going to. So we got things straightened out with his bank. We made sure that he's now claiming Social Security. His cash flow is good. We're preserved his asset. And that is what's so relatively important is that, you know what, everybody's different. Life happens. And we have to make sure that we have plans in place for, we can't hope. We can't hope things are going to turn out okay. And we also got to make sure that if we're a significant others sort of position is, what are you worried about, we're going to be fine. That's not really a prudent approach. So sometimes I have to be the direct about the topic and making sure that what if we're not. And so just this is where planning comes in. This is where working with professionals come in. And I just wanted to make sure that if you've not had an opportunity to work with us, just reach out, right? We're never going to pressure you. But as I another coin phrase that I say, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear, but I am going to tell you what you need to know. So you're just very blessed. Our next workshops that are coming up are at Rutgers. They're April 12th and April 19th. Registration is going to be opening soon. If you want to attend, we would love to have you. They do fill up quickly. I just sent out the approval for the mailing. It'll be going out in 2 weeks. So if you have any desire, you can make it. It's a Saturday. It goes from about 9 to about 10:30. So, and it's right there in New Brunswick. So it's easy to get to. Nothing's going to be sold. But I find that, Social Security is complex and it is an integral part of our planning. So understanding when to claim, how to claim, what's the optimal strategy, right? All these things it's complex. And so if, your circumstances are different than your neighbors, than your coworkers. So we have to make sure that we're looking and thinking about all the details to make sure that you're able to enjoy the retirement that you deserve. So I'm really thankful that all of you were able to join us today. We're at the end, and I'm going to go ahead and play our disclosures. If you need us, reach out and have a great night.